What a joy to be around those who genuinely love Jesus. What a joy to be around those who are so obsessed with Jesus, they just love to praise Him. That's the place I want to be. And just like Pastor Paul had said, it's a second week of New Year 2025, and it's a time that we make a lot of plans, time of resolution. And who had made the plans like this year, I'm going to do this and that. Like many people, any person I'm talked to is like, this is what I thought, this is what I planned for next year. And if you look at the statistics, for example, for signing up the membership for the gym, it's like booming. And you would think how those people even can handle the quantities, the number of those people who likes to join the memberships. Maybe actually you need to extend to build in a lot bigger, take a lot more square footage. But they know the statistics that by the end of the month of January, there will be half of the people who will remain. Because otherwise, we're busy. We're just losing our motivation. And you keep saying to yourself, yeah, I will do that tomorrow. And you just procrastinate. And you keep saying yourself. And then month of January passed, and months of March, and they saying it will be even a lot lower numbers. But it feels good, at least, to keep that membership. Even if you have to pay, and that's not much you're saying, but it feels good. Maybe tomorrow I would feel like motivated to go and actually work in the gym, so that feels good. So then opposite, like watching the Olympics this summer, and I was just so inspired, like looking those athletes and how much work you have to put to achieve that gold medal, silver or bronze. And if you look at them, you realize like it's not like possible to achieve that overnight, those results. That we are talking about countless hours, early mornings, discipline. Those people have to keep their eyes focused on their goal, on their aim. So the things that they have to overcome is just blooming. And one of the most important things, that is your unwavering attachment to your dream. Everything starts with a dream. But what is dream? Dream is like your inner dialogue with yourself, whereas your faith and your doubts having like a wrestling match. That's those sleepless nights that you actually thinking to yourself, okay, if I do this, then this is the risk I have to take. Maybe I should not. And that's the wrestling match. And if in those cases where faith actually won, you proclaim, yes, I can. That's what it takes. If for you to actually say, yes, I can, then all of a sudden you have the passion, the necessary passion to go through all of those obstacles and to achieve that dream, that goal that you go after. And listen to what Apostle Paul says. It seems like we were watching the same event, Olympics, because it's like exactly what we just referring to the sporting event. Don't you know that in a race, all of the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. So obviously he's not talking about athletes. He's speaking to us, church. But what he's saying, look, those principles pretty much the same. They apply. Principle number one is you have to have a goal. When you have a goal, your life is changing. You attach your life to a goal. You have to, in the way you work towards your goal, it's not like the days where you feel good, you actually will work, but the days you feel not good, you don't feel like working, then you put that aside. No, you work. And those who gets the prize work towards that prize. Towards that prize. But when I read that, and I'm thinking, how much certainty would I get to get the prize? It's many of us. It's talking about the competition. And then do I want to put myself in something that I'm thinking at the end of the day I will be wasting my time? You know, from the statistics, how many athletes actually qualified to go to the Olympics? How many? Out of those thousands, millions of people, athletes who actually professionally, who devoted themselves towards that goal, and they really, really want to come to the Olympics, it's less than 1%. But a lot of people trying, a lot of people have the dream, but it's only one who gets that medal. But we're not talking about the medal. Just to qualify to be at the Olympics, it's less than 1%. So it speaks about a lot of uncertainties. And one of the needs that I have, that you have, that is the need of certainty. I want to feel stable. I want to feel like assurance for tomorrow. I don't want to have a risk for tomorrow. I want to know what to expect tomorrow. And a lot of people actually, when they put something like a goal for themselves, they want to lower their expectations. Why? Because at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you're going to analyze yourself. And how are you going to feel if you haven't achieved that? You're going to feel like a loser. And you don't want to feel that. You don't want to be disappointed. That's why a lot of people lower their expectations. So this way, it's more likely I'm going to achieve that. And I want to invite you to go back to one of the stories that we pretty much, many of us, memorized that from our youth, from our times when we went to the Sunday school. That is the time when God delivered His people from Egypt as they were slaves. Do you remember how many years they were slaves? We're talking about 400. It seems like eternity. It's not just 20, it's not like 30, it's not 50 years. It's about 400 years. So in other words, they would have to pass from one generation to another generation, then to another generations. But their dream was about freedom. What is freedom is? What the meaning that they put behind that word freedom? What is the meaning I have, you have for the freedom? Look at what Wikipedia says, speaking on the freedom. Freedom is the ability to act and make choices without unnecessary restrictions or interference. It can also refer to the state of being unaffected by something unwanted or unpleasant. So it's not, in other words, it's not just changing the territory. It's not like they were in jail and they were lacking everything. No, they had the families. And looks like they had the pretty good meals, as they've been talking about later. And what their dream was, it's about something different, much bigger. What is the meaning in my life? Like the two needs we have, one is, yes, I want to have assurance for tomorrow, but the other need is, what is the meaning in my life? One person said, there is two most important days in our lives, the day you were born and the second day you realize why you were born. That is, what is the meaning in my life? And I can imagine the father comes home from work, where they mostly work in the construction, and he comes home and his wife's saying, I don't know what to do, but our son keeps drawing. So obviously he has a gift, he has a talent, but they were not offer education. They were not offer any books. I wish we can give him some books. I wish we can take him to a teacher that could teach him even more to extend those gifts, that he can actually explore his gifting, because that's what they were dreaming about, is what is my call in my life. And like another family, they're saying like, I don't know what to do, but my son is like singing all the time. And I'm asking him, where do you get those lyrics? And he's saying, I'm getting that from heaven. So obviously, he has that gift from God, but he has no place to use that because nobody will tell him like, look, you have such a big potential. You can do anything. They didn't hear those stuff. So the only time they would get together around the table and father would speak to his children and they would say, look, we have this revelation from God. God had promised that he will lead us from this country to the country of promised land. And so they were each evening, they would surround the table and they would talk about that. They would dream about that because that gives you the meaning in your life. I want to give you another illustration about the meaning in life. Like, I talked to one of the wealthy people, and he's a wealthy person, and he's saying, I don't know what to do. There was a time in my life I felt so bored. And I was reluctant to do anything. And then one weekend, I get invited to go to beach play volleyball. And I didn't want to, but then they insisted, so I came along. And as I thought, when we arrived, I just like, they play, they have fun. I don't have fun. So I got a chair and I'm simply staring at the water. And there's a lot of noise. They are playing, they have fun, and I'm just staring at the water. And then as I hear this noise, but then I hear somebody screaming, help, help. And he said, without even second thought, I'm jumping into the water to rescue a child. As he rescued the child, he brought him to the shore. So now there is people, there is families around, and all of a sudden he feels such a content. And he's thinking, later he thinks to himself, I should have been more tired because I put so much energy, and I should have less energy now, but all of a sudden I feel a lot of energy. I feel great. For the first time, for the long time, I feel content. Why? 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 Because he found the meaning in life. When you rescue somebody's life and you help somebody like that child, it felt really, really good about. So it speaks about, again, about the needs that you and I have, which is certainty. I would like to feel certain for tomorrow. I don't want to worry about, I don't want to have risk for tomorrow, whether I will have a job or not, whether I will be able to make my bills or not, whether I will be having this work or I will be fired. I want to be sure on that, right? But the second one, what is the meaning in my life? What is the calling in my life where I can put my potential? So it comes to the two words, one that I have to do it and one that I want to do it. When you go fishing, do you say, I have to go in fishing? Or do you say, I want to go fishing? Do you say, I have to go golfing? Or you saying, I want to go golfing? But what do you say when the Monday comes on your calendar? How do you usually say? Do you say, I have to go to work? Or you look with such an excitement that Monday comes and I feel the same way as I feel about the weekend? It comes to that. Do I have the choice or really I don't have the choice? So can you imagine now what is that 400 years? So each evening they would surround the table and Father would talk about the promise of God. He would talk about this revelation, and I can imagine they would be worshiping God. They would talk about their future, sharing different ideas. But then generation passed, and I can imagine the Father on his deathbed, and he calling his son, son, you have to promise me. What, Father? You have to promise me that you're going to take this torch of faith and you're going to carry with you to your family, to your generation. And you're going to remind themselves, to inspire each your family about the future, that you are not forgotten that God knows about you, that you are special in His eyes. And you have to remember that, and you have to promise me that. And he would look at the father. Father, I thought you already realize if God really promised that, why would He not show that by now? Why would He not deliver us? Obviously, we are too naive to think that He will. No, son. Remember those moments that we were seeking His face, that we were talking about the promise. Remember how well we felt. And that actually gave me the meaning in my life. The only time it will be wasted if you will not take the torch of faith and go to your generation. And I'm sure He promised him that, yes, I will. So now it goes to another generation. So it's about 70, 80 years person life. So it's now about 150 years. Then it goes another generation, probably the same things. Can you imagine the day the celebration must have been when they actually celebrated the day had come? And then Moses came with the news to deliver them from Egypt. What celebration that was. You waited so long. You dealt with so much pain. And now the day had come. How that must felt. But what I cannot understand, what doesn't make sense, 3 days after, as they going towards that promised land, just 3 days, they actually complain and they say, some of them are saying, I wish I go back. Go back where? Back to Pharaoh. And now I will admit that I was wrong. Please take me and I will be as a volunteer working for you. Can you imagine that? Why would you do that? Because first time in their life they experience uncertainty. How was it for them before? It was very predictable. So there was like 7 o'clock in the morning. They go to work. They have breakfast. They go to work. There is a lunch. There was never a time where they have to guess whether they will have water or not. Because for the 3 days, for the first day, they realized there is no water. They ask Moses, where's the water? And he's saying, only God knows. You have to learn how to trust God. They didn't like that. They didn't like, because when you have to trust, how would I know whether tomorrow or in a month later that's not going to repeat again? That gives you that uncertainty. So then a second day, and again the same thing, there is lack of water. So again they asking Moses, where's the water? I don't know. Only God knows. You have to trust God. So there is a third day. So obviously they're thinking, well, for sure there will be water. Yes, the water comes, but it's bitter. So God tells him what he has to do to make that water sweet. But again, everything depends on God. Everything depends on faith, that I have to put on his hands my faith. And I don't like that. That's why they had there is a choice they have to make. One is certainty that they didn't like what they've been doing, but they got used to those conditions, and they already figure out how to deal with my emotions. But yeah, that gives me great potential to find the meaning in my life, to have a calling. So now my kids, at least my grandkids, my kids will be able to explore their potential. Yes, that's important to me. But seems like that is more important to me, to have a certainty in my life that I can avoid taking any risk. Can we relate to that? Are we taking any risk today? There is risk of unknown that you have to face? Or there is a risk of failure that you have to take? Would you prefer to avoid that, knowing that you never have to take that risk? How do you deal with that? So in other words, yes, I would love to have the dream, but if I only can avoid that risk, yes, I would love to do that. Otherwise, as soon as the pressure comes to your life, what do you do when that pressure comes to your life? So in other words, yes, between me and that dream of mine, what is the stain on between? Is fear. Is fear. There was a moment in my life, I was in school, and now you hear a lot about bowling. And it wasn't different back then. We had a guy who was like, he was putting a lot of pressure in my life and other people's lives. He would just beating them, and so nobody could actually challenge him. And there was one time the guy from another school was transferred to our class, and he comes and he's saying, well, I see what's going on, but what you guys have to do, you have to teach him a lesson. Just get together and teach him a lesson, challenge him and teach him a lesson. Do that as a group. And we say, no, yeah, sure. But who's going to do that? Who's going to challenge him? And he said, I will. So then he said, but as long as you can promise me, he looked at me in the eyes and he said, as long as you can promise me, as soon as I start that, you will come and help me. And I was like thinking to myself, oh, sure you will. There is no way you will. So I'm saying, yeah, sure, I will. I will come and help you. So the fight had started. He challenged him. I was surprised, but he did. And then it was my turn to go. But then I'm thinking to myself, what if we're going to lose? What is going to happen? And then my life is going to become more miserable. So my legs could not even move. I was paralyzed. But to my surprise, Serge, my friend, actually taught him a lesson. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, wow, Serge, you're great. They're giving him so much praise. Then he comes to me and he said, what happened? Why you didn't keep your word? You promised me. And I'm saying, look, Serge, it was obvious to me. As I look, it was obvious to me that you're going to win. And I thought, how unfaithful that would be if I take the credit for me. So I thought to myself, it's better you take the whole credit as you deserve. So he's probably thinking to himself, well, that's great. I mean, this guy, he's well respected. And that's how it was. I felt great. And then I went home, and for the first time in my life, I could not look at myself in the mirror. I look at and I saw that covered who I was. And for the first time, I hated myself because I realized there was also a choice I could have made. One that gives me certainty, and the other one I had to take a risk. And now it's the same thing. I can lose my identity if I chose to be certain, because I don't have to risk. Because now the risk is, what are they going to think? What are they going to call me coward? And stuff like that. And until you making the decision and you realize, and I'm saying to myself, I rather die than I would not admit that I was a coward. So I went down and actually admit, and I said, I was wrong. This is what I did. So we're saying about my dream and what is the stain between me and my dream, a lot of times that is fear. So unless it's changing your perspective, usually your perspective has to change first before you going to make different actions. It never different. It's always the same. Your perspective has to change. And let me show you that on the scripture. There was a time where enemy had surrounded Israel, and the king of Israel comes to prophet Elijah, and he says, now Elijah has been suffering from the illness from which he died. Jehoiada, king of Israel, went down to see him and wept over him. My father, he cried, the chariots and horsemen of Israel. So regardless the fact that Prophet Elijah was seriously ill, but he thoughts about the Israel. And when he sees the leader of the country lost, broken, full of fear, he understands unless he changes his perspective, the fight is lost before it even begins. You have to conquer your own fear, your own doubts, before you can face the challenge on the field. So that's why he's saying, Elijah said, get a bow and some arrows. And he did so. Take the bow in your hands, he said to the king of Israel. When he had taken it, Elijah put his hands on the king's hands. The question, why would he do that? Putting his hands on the top of the king's hands. Because it shows how vulnerable he was and how much fear he was feeling under the pressure. So basically he acted like a father would. When you see a child and child is shaken, he would grab his by hand. And it's interestingly enough what the human touch can do when the person has that confidence. And he pretty much transferred that confidence to king, like, look, you're in the hands of God. Stop worrying about. Start putting your faith in God. That's pretty much what he's doing. So the next thing, then he says to the king, open the east window, he said, and he opened it. Shoot, Elijah said, and he shot. The Lord's arrow of victory, the arrow of victory over a man, Elijah declared. You will completely destroy the Arameans of Apec. Again, one might think, what is the game for? We need to hurry to actual field, but you don't. And that's why many times we go and we fail, because especially if you put to pressure, you run. Where instead of running, you should actually stop and go to his counsel to get a different, why? Because you need to get a different perspective. And ask him to take your nerves under his control, but in return ask for peace, wisdom, and faith to change your perspective. And he says, open the window. It talks about to get the new perspective, new vision. Because when you have a vision, you will act differently. That's what he's talking about. Because again, in order to win the battle, you have to take the victory over your own limited mindset. That's what the prophet did. Open the window. Shoot the arrow is to receive the vision. Only having vision is completely changing your perception or your narrative. Because the vision dictates how much I will be determined to reach that goal. My determination. So the vision is the answer why you're persistent. So here's what he says next. Then he said, take the arrows, and king took them. Elijah told him, strike the ground, and he struck it 3 times and stopped. The man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times, then you would have defeated Aram and completely destroyed him. But now you will defeat it only 3 times. The question is, was that a coincidence? Was he not able? Why would he not able to hit the 4th time or the 5th time? What's the big deal about that? But the level of your vision pretty much dictates how much you will be persistent. So if your faith is this much, that means you will make one attempt, two attempts, and you will stop. Soon as you have a challenge, soon as you have some feeling like risk of failure, then you're going to stop. Hitting the 5 times, 6 times, that means that shows how much persistent you're going to be. And that talks about the vision. So in other words, you let your doubts change your perspective. And that's why the prophet said you shouldn't stop, and you should have listened to the voice, not of your emotions, but follow the Lord to submit to His will. That's what we're talking about, my friends. Believe in your vision, it will reveal your full potential. So the year is begin. I call the title, The Choice I Never Thought I Have. Do I know this is the choices I have? The choice between what is more important to me, what is the meaning in my life, and whether I will be avoiding any risk because I want to feel certain. And that's why I will be avoiding the risk. There was a time where professor was at the end of the school year, and he called his students and he said, there is something I want to do that I never done before, and I'm willing to do this now, considering the fact how hard you've been working. This is the exam, and I will give you a chance. You can still stay, take your chances, or I will give you automatic B, and you don't have to stay for the exam. All of those students, they raise and they say, wow, thank you so much, professor. That is so thoughtful of you. And they start leaving. So the only people remain, it was 5 students that still remain because they want to take a chance. Maybe I'll get an A, in other words. And he made another announcement to make sure that you are not losing your chance to get automatic B. Because now, once the door is closed, you're not going to have another chance for the automatic B. If that will be C, that will be C. If you get A, that will be A. There was another student just stood up and left, and 4 people still remain in the class. He closed the door. He comes to them with a piece of paper. That's the only thing it says. Congratulations, you got an A. Keep believing yourself. Let's pray. That's what the Lord want to tell you today, is keep believing yourself. Whether you're going to believe your dream or whether you're going to rely on yourself, that's the difference between having the goal and put your eyes, your focus toward achieving that, or you're going to avoid that. Lord, thank you so much for the word we have received today. It shows us how much you care for us. It's reminding us about the potential that each of us have. Let's remind each of us and show us in your mirror, in your eyes, that we can see the potential that we have, that fear will not stop us. Let us have the fresh vision for today.
Hey, thank you for watching CityHill Church YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss when we go live or post new content. Make sure to leave a comment about what spoke to you, where you're watching from, and how can we pray for you. And if you would like to support the ministry, you can give right on our website at cityhillchurch.org and help us keep reaching people for Jesus. Thank you and be blessed.